So I'm always looking at new opportunities or areas where I feel that there's huge potential for growth in a specific industry. And through my research, I discovered the cannabis industry. So in this video, I'm going to give you a breakdown of like all the information I discovered, and I'm going to share with you one company that I discovered that are doing really innovative things in the space. One of the major problems at the moment is that the cannabis market over the last few years has been highly competitive. Retail and wholesale prices for legal marijuana in Oregon are at an all-time or near an all-time low as a cannabis oversupply continues to affect licensed businesses. The regulator warned that declining wholesale and retail prices for usable marijuana are due to large stocks of usable marijuana inventory left over from previous years, which is likely to continue to put downward pressure on prices. So I'm reading you this because it really kind of paints the picture of a declining market of cannabis in Oregon. And what's really interesting about this is that there is a producer of cannabis in Oregon called GRIN, who are the #1 flower producer. And they're also the cheapest producer of cannabis per pound in Oregon as well. And so as other manufacturers are going into administration, GRIN are actually growing. They are building new facilities, they're acquiring assets from other cannabis companies that are going bust. They're free cash flow positive as well. And so some of the biggest companies out there, like Curaleaf, have had to shut up shop and abandon operations. So Curaleaf, who are one of the most well-known and biggest cannabis manufacturers out there, they've actually been forced to shut down in Oregon because they could not compete with GRIN. And they've also shut down in other places like Massachusetts and California as well. Just looking at those kind of stats and facts, it caused me to look a lot more into detail about GRIN and who they were. And they have a very interesting person leading the company, a guy called Obie Strickler. He is a 10% owner of GRIN, and there's 20% inside ownership of the company. He's very obsessed with process. He's stripped back everything and he's very much focused on the product. His whole team are incredibly passionate about flower, about growing flower, which is why they've been the #1 flower in Oregon, and they're a top 5 to 10 producer in Michigan as well. And so some of the key things that I really like about GRIN is that they have low inventory, so they have very low stock of their product. You know, in one of these interviews he mentions that they only have like 1 week's inventory, and that goes out, and they are just kind of churning out the cannabis as they produce it, right? And because of the hardships of the competitive nature in Oregon, they were forced to be very streamlined and efficient, and in doing so, they've developed a very scalable business model. And so what they're doing with this scalable business model, what I can see them doing is that they are looking at individual states strategically where they can use this scalable business model that's really efficient that they developed in Oregon, and then start plotting them strategically across different states in the US where cannabis is legal. And again, like one of the things that's really great about Obie Strickler, it's almost like the hardship was a blessing. It forced them to be efficient, and he is very focused on capital allocation. And that's exactly the kind of stuff that you want from an owner, someone who's very much making decisions about where they allocate capital so that they can grow the business. And so there are also some really interesting things going on the political level with cannabis at the moment. At the moment, there are discussions at a federal level with the DEA to discuss the rescheduling of cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. And so currently at the moment, cannabis is labelled like a Schedule 1 drug along with MDMA and LSD. And what Schedule 1 implies is that these drugs have no kind of therapeutic value, or they have no medicinal properties. And so the Biden administration at the moment have put this as like a key priority to discuss the rescheduling of cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. And this completely changes the landscape, and I think it's the first step to having cannabis descheduled completely. Because of this situation, you know, in some states cannabis is legal for adult use, and it is legal for medicinal use as well, but then in other states it is not. And so what this means is that there is no interstate commerce. That basically means that you can only manufacture and produce and sell the cannabis in specific states, and it cannot be shipped out. And so what it is right now, because cannabis is considered illegal at the federal level, cannabis firms are actually cut off from the US financial system. And there is legislation being discussed at the moment at Senate level in order to introduce new laws to enable cannabis businesses to trade just like any other business. And so what this means is that at the moment, most cannabis businesses are very much restricted in terms of like the basic banking services that they can access. They're restricted in terms of like checking accounts that they can open, accessing business loans, using credit cards. And it also means that they have like limited investment opportunities. So again, because cannabis is considered illegal at a federal level, they face challenges in raising capital. Most enterprises are reluctant to invest in them because they're not recognized as legal businesses. There are a lot of things happening politically with the cannabis space at the moment, which means that the business over the next few years is going to change dramatically. And there's also this Safer Banking Act, which is taking place at the moment. And one of the key things to take note of is that there are big banking companies, MasterCard, Bank of America, lobbying for marijuana banking at the moment. And so with all of these discussions happening at the moment, it seems that the cannabis landscape is going to change dramatically. And what with this hyper-competitive environment in which we're in, where Grown Rogue has been one of the quiet leaders, still a very small company, still an undiscovered company, which is making headwind and has made great progress in like some highly, highly challenging and competitive environments. It looks like it's a good investment opportunity for someone who is willing to potentially buy now and hold on. And I'll finish off by saying that their price has dramatically increased over the last 6 months or so. I had my eye on it, even 3 months ago I was looking at it and wanted to buy, but I was unable to buy it through Interactive Brokers. I had to open up another trading account with a Canadian-based company called QuestTrade. So in the description below, you'll find a few videos with Obie Strickler if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about the man himself and also, how he operates the business, the challenges, the inner workings, and the philosophy of Grown Rogue as well. Have a look at those. There's also an interesting interview with a guy called Aaron Edelheit from Mindset Capital, where he's leading a conversation with former employees of the DEA and some lawyers, just discussing the rescheduling of cannabis and what that looks like for the future of cannabis in the US. So have a look at them if you're interested, and thanks very much for watching.